Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Game, presented by Tunnel Vision Sports. I am your host, Stephen Hayes. Today, our guest is Ron Garber. Ron has a tremendous story. He and a few others started the Yaya Foundation for children who have unknown. I want to make sure I'm saying it right, Ron. Is it 4-H leukodystrophy?
That's exactly right, Stephen. Yeah.
And Ron is a former athlete, University of Michigan, but more importantly, he has an awesome story to share. So I want to get to that. Ron, thank you for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, Stephen, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So, I want to get right into this. And, I want to make sure that you help me understand what 4-H leukodystrophy is and others out there who may not be aware of what this is and how the foundation got started.
Yeah. So first, you mentioned my sports background. I played basketball, or really rode the bench on the basketball team for the University of Michigan back when I was in school, and so that's kind of the sports connection to the story. Even though I think there's a lot in my sports and basketball background that I bring to our work with the Yaya Foundation, and I can get to that later. But your question about 4-H leukodystrophy, my wife June and I had our first child about almost 6 years ago, and her name was Yaya. And when she was born, we were over the moon, excited, first-time parents in that zone of sleepless nights and coming home with your child and just being excited and tired and kind of newborn bliss. And when she was kind of 4 to 6 weeks old, she started to have some challenges, and we kind of started to get concerned about her missing some milestones. And we went to see our doctor, and our doctor kind of told us everything was normal. And over the next really 8 months, those challenges became more and more significant, and eventually really significant, to the point that we were very concerned about her. And but no one could tell us what was going on. And she ultimately developed some feeding problems. She needed a feeding tube to be placed, and when her challenges became more significant, we were able to get more sophisticated genetic testing, which uncovered that she was affected by a rare genetic brain disease called 4-H leukodystrophy. It's a really rare disease, only between a few hundred and a couple of thousand patients known worldwide. And when we got that diagnosis, our doctors really couldn't tell us anything about it other than there's nothing we can do. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how the disease is going to progress. All we know is that there's no medicine, there's no therapy, there's no cure. We just kind of have to wait and see. And imagine being told that as a parent. And I frankly didn't believe it. I didn't believe that there was that a scenario like that existed, right? Where you spend 8 months trying to understand what's happening to your daughter, and doctors tell you, this is what's happening, and there's nothing you can do about it. And Yaya's disease progressed really very fast and very significantly, and she passed away really just 5 months after that diagnosis, when she was 13 months old. And after she died, my wife and I connected with a couple of other parents, and we decided that, hey, we can't accept that this exists, that this is the current kind of state of play for kids that are affected, that there's no answer for them. And we founded the IAF Foundation. And at the IAF Foundation, our mission is to accelerate efforts to discover therapies that will help kids affected by 4-H live longer, better lives, and to provide educational and emotional support for families that are affected. And for the last several years, we've been working really hard on those goals. And we've had a couple of great accomplishments that maybe we can talk about as we get further into this. But that's kind of our story and why the Yaya Foundation exists.
Well, first and foremost, I would love to commend you and your wife, June, for, continuing this, for having the strength to not accept that and to be able to move forward and say, we want to help others. So making sure educate others to understand what this is and how things can progress with this situation. As you said earlier, no parent wants to be told that their child has something this rare, and also that there's nothing that can be done about it. So seriously, man, I commend you and your wife June for pushing through. And I just think there's so many different things in the world that people are so uneducated on. So what kind of got you and your wife going with the research, and how you all were able to start understanding what this was?
Yeah. So first of all, Stephen, I appreciate it a lot. I appreciate your words of support, and it means a lot to me. And really, what I'll say to that is, grief and loss, I think, creates a lot of energy, and there are different ways to channel that energy. And for me, the foundation and working to further the science and to help other kids like Yaya that come after her has been a really helpful channel for that energy. And it allows me to, continue to be her dad in a way, even though she's not here anymore. It sort of enables me to keep her life and the meaning and the impact of her life kind of alive even after her. And your question about the science and sort of understanding, like for me, I said that I kind of couldn't understand it at first, the diagnosis, and it didn't make any sense to me. And at least getting a kind of basic level understanding of the science and what's happening with the disease really helped me kind of accept Yaya's disease, and it kind of just personally and emotionally like helped me move forward. Just personally for the foundation, being a parent and trying to advance rare disease drug discovery is really hard. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a pharma person or a biotech person. But what we've been able to do is get some really, really strong people involved, and build a community in our disease area. And so what we did was we kind of convened the experts, the few experts, really just a handful of people in the world who study the disease and who know it really well, and get them together alongside people from outside our disease community who know therapy discovery in a couple of particular areas that could be helpful to our community of kids, and get them together and get them collaborating and sharing knowledge so that we could sort of combine deep disease knowledge alongside therapy expertise in areas like gene therapy and cell therapy and small molecule repurposing, not to get too technical on pharma and biotech stuff, but we're it's almost tunnel vision sports. It's like building a basketball team. If you have 5 point guards on the floor, how are you going to protect the rim? How are you going to guard the other team's bigs? If you have only disease experts working on a disease, how are you going to develop a sophisticated drug that requires really, really specialized knowledge? So we're trying to approach it as like a GM and like building a team. And so we've got, our point guard, and we have sort of a couple of point guards. So the analogy starts to fray a little, but are the people who know the disease really well. And we combine them with, a center at the University of Massachusetts who's doing amazing gene therapy work. And we bring them together and we do some projects together. And we just funded actually a really cool gene therapy proof of concept project. But essentially what we're trying to do is build a community, build a team that has all the pieces in place that are necessary to achieve the outcome we want for our kids, which are available therapies that can help them live better, longer lives.
And, Ron, that's awesome. And like you said, I love the analogy you gave. You can't have 5 point guards on the floor, but making sure that you build the right team to be able to achieve the necessary goals to make this work. And before we get into, some of the amazing things you all have been able to do with this and the partnerships and things of that nature, what do you have, not nothing exact, but do you have any type of a roundabout of how many parents that you all came across that have had children with the same situation with 4H leukodystrophy?
Yeah. So when we got diagnosed, we looked online for, basically, we were like, okay, 4H leukodystrophy, let's go find the American Cancer Society of 4H leukodystrophy, the big, well-organized, patient-led foundation that's working on our behalf. And so we went online and we found, Stephen, one family. We found one family running a golf tournament in Ohio. Wow. And they're amazing. They're our partners now. They're on our board. We work together really closely, but we found one. And that was dismaying and discouraging, but we said, we're going to build a community. So we reached out to them, connected. We found another family in Oregon that did a banquet dinner to raise some money. And so we connected with them, and they joined up with us. So we started with 3 families. Well, today, Stephen, I just got off a call going over our database. We have 51 family contacts in our database right now.
That's awesome, man.
And we thank you. And we launched a data collection program earlier this year where we're collecting data with the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard, best-in-class rare disease data collection platform. And we have 44 patients, 44 kids in our database. So we've gone from 1 to 3 to really 51. And we're just building a family community. We know we have a small community. We're not going to be able to do this alone, but we're building that community, and we're really proud of how far we've taken it so far.
Yeah, and it's something, to understand, and like you said, knowing that you were going from 1 to 3 to 51, that alone is encouraging, and as you said earlier, it's a rare situation, but I love the fact that you decided not to say, losing a child, obviously, I don't understand that feeling, but I have children of my own. And I do know that that is either, a time for sulking and just waddling in it or doing something about it, especially when your child passes away from something like this, So for you all to be able to say, okay, well, let's move the needle forward, let's push forward, let's make sure that we're helping others to not be on the same situation, make sure you educate yourself, things of that nature, that's very encouraging for, those families who are dealing with this situation. And for you guys to be able to move this forward, to have the 51, it doesn't matter if the number was still 3 or 1, it's still huge to me because what you guys are doing is so important. And what you guys are doing means a lot. I know it means a lot to those families, but it's more than that. It's something that can change the course of what we know. And I before I was sent what was going on with you and your foundation, I had never even heard of 4H leukodystrophy. So me trying to do the research and, I'm obviously not caught up on everything, but just slightly educating myself to have this conversation with you and understanding how rare it really is. But the fact that you all are moving forward with this and making sure that it is something that's known, it is something that's public to be able to help families in need like this, to you all, I commend you.
Stephen, yeah, look, thank you. And I'm really glad you brought that up because it is so easy for those of us that are blessed with health and healthy families and healthy children. It's so easy for us to really, you said it, to not even know that these diseases exist. And before Yaya was diagnosed, I didn't even forget 4H leukodystrophy. I didn't know about rare disease. There are 7,000 rare diseases, over 7,000 rare diseases that affect millions and millions of people. And it's so easy for us that are blessed with health to look the other way, not even intentionally, but just to not know that they exist. Right. And so I think, to me, that's the value that I can add is I can help people understand that these diseases really do affect people, really change their lives really meaningfully. And And I think that for all of us that are healthy and have healthy kids, I believe that really we all have an obligation to, you mentioned my family sort of being fortunate and coming through this and being able to, make some good out of a really devastating situation. And not every family is able to do that. And that's not through any fault of their own. That's because this stuff is really hard. And I think that all of us that are blessed with health have an obligation to help those people. And so that is, what I'm trying to do is sort of tell the story of our disease community so that people out there who are fortunate enough to have never heard of 4-H, and I appreciate you, Stephen, doing some research and learning about it, but who have never heard of it, to say, those people, I want to help those families that are affected, and I want to help their kids so that they have better outcomes. And I'll add a note there is that research into rare disease can also help lots of other bigger patient populations. And you mentioned unlocking knowledge. Our disease involves something called RNA polymerase 3, which is like a critical building block of life and is implicated in many cancers and other diseases. And studying that in the context of our disease could not only help our small patient community, but also help cancer patients across the world and other brain disease patients around. So there are really important reasons why even those of us who are fortunate enough not to have been affected by 4-H should care about it and should want to learn about it, and I hope help.
Absolutely. And like you said, not everyone is blessed to be able to have the health. And, just thinking when I was doing the research, just thinking about, myself, me and my wife, we have children, and, that thought, even going into the delivery room, even through the pregnancy, that thought never crosses your mind about things of that nature. So it is important to educate ourselves on things like that, because nothing can prepare you for being told something like that, but you at least want to have the knowledge to understand certain things, you know what I mean? So, and for you all to be moving forward with this and to be able to continue this journey, I wanted to kind of get into, how I found out about you was with some of the partnerships that you all are starting with the Yaya Foundation. So with the McGill University Health Center in Montreal, talk to me a little bit about that and how that came about.
Yeah, so we are really fortunate to have an amazing researcher in Montreal at the Research Institute of the McGill University Health Center named Geneviève Bernard. And I'll tell you, when we got Yaya's diagnosis from her doctor, I told you he had never heard of the disease, didn't know much about it, and he handed us a journal article and said, "Here, read this. Never mind that we're not scientists or doctors." And we tried to read the journal article. It's like scientific language, hard to understand.
Right.
But we gave it to our friend who's a doctor. And that journal article was by Geneviève Bernard, and our friend emailed her, and she responded within the next morning. And within the next day, we were it was before Zoom, so we were on a Skype call with her. And a few days later, we were in Montreal seeing her. And she was able to, like I said, she's one of just a handful of people who knows the disease really well. She would help us to really understand Yaya's condition and helped us sort of set expectations around how the disease would progress. But she's an amazing researcher who knows the disease, better than just about everyone else in the world, and maybe there are two other people who know it like she knows it. And, more than just studying the disease, she shares our desire to develop therapies that can help kids. And one of her ideas for a therapy is something called a gene therapy. And you can go to the Yaya Foundation website and learn more about what gene therapy is and learn more about this amazing partnership that we just announced last week. But essentially, our disease is caused, and I'll do this just in 30 seconds, Stephen, not to go down like the science hole on gene therapy, but in all of our cells, we have genes, and the genes are the code for how our body makes proteins that build our body and help us develop. And kids affected by 4-H and many other rare genetic diseases have faulty copies of a particular gene. And in our case, it's one gene. It's one gene where there's supposed to be, say, a T, and instead there's an A. And that small difference is catastrophic and impacts development. And gene therapy at a high level is delivering a correct copy of the gene to cells in the body so that those cells can now make a correct copy of the protein that the faulty cell isn't able to make. And that's just my best attempt at that. So check it out.
I understand that though. That makes me understand it a little bit better because you broke it down like that. That makes me understand that a little bit better.
Okay, cool. So there are gene therapies in development for other diseases. We want a gene therapy for our disease. And so what we've come up with is a project with her and a couple of doctors at the University of Massachusetts, the Hooray Gene Therapy Center at the University of Massachusetts, Guangping Gao and June Xie, who are gene therapy experts. And so like I'm building a team, we're building a team where, now we've got a point guard and a wing and a big and everyone, all the right people on the floor, and they're working together to really tackle the first step in the long, hard process of developing a gene therapy that could be administered to kids affected by 4-H. And so they're developing, correct copies of the genes and then delivering those to mice that have sort of a model of the disease that are affected by mouse 4-H essentially, and seeing if they can cure the mice essentially with that proof of concept gene therapy. And that's the first step in a long road to a gene therapy that could one day be given to kids. But it's a very hopeful step for our community because before this project existed, all this was an idea. And the researchers who wanted to do it didn't have any sort of, drug discovery is expensive. And there was no funding. Again, a lot of people say, including large funding sources, say it's easy to put rare diseases over there and it's just a small patient population and it's not worth our investment. And so the researchers, had this idea, wanted to do it, didn't have funding for it. And what we were able to do as a patient organization is build that team and provide funding. And that is a great sense of hope for our family community because again, like I said, before this, there was no gene therapy program in effect, and now it's moving forward, and it's a really exciting first step for our patient and family communities.
And it's exciting and it's encouraging, that you all were able to grab that partnership and, like you said, to be able to understand this and to be yes, it's a long journey, but now where you are. You're at step one, and that's the most important thing. Being able to take that step, that's huge. And I wanted to kind of touch on, earlier at the top of the show, you had mentioned about, playing basketball at the University of Michigan, but how did you said, that kind of helped you with things like this? And I noticed with a lot of the things that you're, talking about, you use that sports analogy to be able to help me at least understand, how it's going on. So, in what ways, because you being an athlete, in what ways can you say that helped you? Because I don't think a lot of people realize how much sports really prepare you for. It's not just going out there playing, the sport. It's thinking. It's a mental game more than it is a physical game. And you being able to, basically, however you want to put it, being down by 10 or whatever the case may be, and being able to will yourself. You see a shot go in and you continue to shoot. And that's in a sense what you guys are doing. You're just going forward and you're not missing and putting yourselves back in the game to make sure that, you win this thing. So just kind of touch on how, sports helped you and relate it to this, because I just heard you talk about it and I wanted to get more into that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Stephen. For me, I think in my life so far, I've had really like two improbable situations where I've been able to sort of do a lot with a little. And one of them is me walking onto the Michigan basketball team as a tall, skinny, I won't say no talent, but I'll say little talent, little athleticism player, kind of gawky, skinny, slow kid who worked hard and worked smart to get the most out of what he had. And another, I think, improbable success, it's not yet a finished story yet, but it's in process, is what we've been able to do with the IAF Foundation in a short time. And to me, it's the same thing, and it speaks directly to your question about how sports prepares you for life, and how sports is more than just about getting on the court. Basketball is about more than getting on the court and running up and down and putting the ball in the basket. And it's about working hard. It's about working smart. It's about being dedicated. It's about learning, working with other people, building relationships, collaborating, sharing. And when I was trying to walk onto the Michigan basketball team as a skinny, slow kid, I had to develop a strategy. I knew what my weaknesses were. There were lots of them, and I had to focus on the most important ones and attack them. And so, I came up with a strategic plan about how to get bigger and stronger and a little more skilled, a little more tough, and I executed on that plan every day. And I gained, I had to gain about 25 pounds in a year between the kind of year before I walked onto the team and the year I walked onto the team. So I was working out every day. I was counting every calorie. I was playing, 5 days a week, working on my left hand. I had a plan and I executed on that plan. And with the IAF Foundation, it's really the same thing. How do we know? How do I, a dad who doesn't know anything about science, know that this gene therapy is the right thing? Well, I worked with an amazing team. I put the right people together. We came up with a strategy. We thought strategically about how are we going to work hard and how are we going to work smart? How are we going to get the most out of the limited resources that we have? We came up with a strategy, and we have a multi-step strategy for natural history study, gene therapy, cell therapy, clinical trial infrastructure. We have a strategy, and now we're just executing on that strategy. And we're working hard, we're working smart. And the name of your company, Tunnel Vision, I really like that, because I think about that in the context of basketball when I was playing basketball, and now the Yaya Foundation is seeing the goal and being focused on the goal and seeing down that tunnel and focused on what we need to do to get there. And the strategic thinking, the dedication, the hard and smart work as a basketball player is just what we're doing with the IAF Foundation, and keeping our eye on the prize and trying to execute against our strategy every single day, not skip any steps.
And it's like what you said earlier as well. You go from being a basketball player, an athlete, to now the GM, and making sure that you build the right team, to make sure that you put the right pieces around, like you just said. And that is what is encouraging and inspiring to me, to shift it. But also I understand that's where that sports background helps you, because, a lot of people, I know me personally, whatever situation I'm in, I somehow always relate it to sports, and I always kind of build it up and get it back on track as sports. Sports, number one thing is communication, and that's how we build that's what Tunnel Vision is about. The number one thing we want to make sure we're doing is communicating with our guests, with our interns, everything, because you need that communication, whether you're playing basketball, football, whatever you're playing in a team environment, communication is key. And even if you're in a singles like boxing or whatever, to go golf or whatever, you have the coaches, you have people who letting you know what's going on. So for you to be able to communicate and for you to understand at the same time, learn as you're going, and be able to communicate and help the people, help the parents, and help anybody else, building an awesome research team, grabbing some groundbreaking partnerships to be able to help you guys along the way, things of that nature. First thing my mind went to was the sports background, because it intertwines to me, so I can't say I commend you guys enough, man. I truly do. Listening you talk, trying not to, keep the biggest smile on my face, because I'm inspired by what you're doing. And, like you said, You said I believe it was 7,000 rare diseases, and no parent, I don't care who you are, no parent thinks of that when they find out they're pregnant. No mother thinks of that, no father thinks of that, whatever the case may be. But for you to be able to keep moving, and like you said, there are parents out there who weren't able to continue this. So what you're doing is actually bigger. Yeah, I look at it as bigger than just you and your wife and what you're doing. It's for a whole community. Like I said it before, I don't care how rare the community is. It's to be able to show we can do this. And that's why that's why I wanted to call this Beyond the Game, because it's to show other people that you can, I apologize. It's to show other people that you can do things other than become an athlete. That's not always the road. And your success story, whether you're playing professional basketball or not, or whatever you're doing, walking on to Michigan is huge. That's a huge thing to walk on. But this is bigger. This is a bigger success story. I'm not downgrading what you did for the walking on, but this is a bigger success story because it's impacting so many others. I look at the University of Michigan walk on as a personal accomplishment, if I will, but what you're doing now is an accomplishment for a whole community. And to be able to educate people, you're educating me as I'm talking to you, helping me do the research. But when I knew I was when I reached out to you and you reached back, I was excited because I wanted to do the research. But even after this, I'm going to continue to do research. My wife is actually pregnant with our third child now. So, I'm going to talk to her more about it and let her know what's going on and just make sure that we educate ourselves. Obviously, not in a small time frame to educate yourself on 7,000 different rare diseases, but just step by step. I think that's what continues this path to making this known and making this public. Is just whether it's just me and my wife or we talk to somebody, now it's constantly growing one step at a time to be able to understand what this is.
I really appreciate that, Stephen. And first of all, congratulations. That's amazing news for you and your wife. And I'm really excited for you guys. And I'll just say, for me, it's a privilege to be able to do this. And I appreciate all your kind words about what, my work and our work. But I'll say, for me, it's a privilege. And I feel really fortunate to be able to do it. One, because it's helped me move forward in my own life. It's helped me keep my daughter Yaya's memory alive. But also, it's one of the most unfair things about rare disease is that the people who need to do something about it or who sort of are expected to do something about it are the people who are most burdened by it and who have the least capacity to work on the problem. And, if you look at our parent community, these are parents, and I was there. Every single day is unpredictable. You wake up in the morning and you don't know what issues your child is going to be dealing with. And all you want to do is help. And so you're trying to go to work and take care of your kid. And you don't have a lot of time or energy or emotional space to now say, okay, I'm going to go raise money for rare disease research or put together a foundation. And, we've been supported by our family and friends. We now have the ability to the time and the emotional space to be able to focus on it. And it's a privilege to be able to do this work on behalf of our disease community. So I appreciate all your kind words, but I just feel so fortunate that we're able to do it.
Absolutely. And like I said, you have our support here at Tunnel Vision. If you can, leave the website, where everybody can find more about the Yaya Foundation. If you can say that website, and I'll make sure, we display it.
Okay, yeah, great. Please check us out at Yaya Foundation 4hl.org. So that's Yaya Foundation, the number 4hl.org. And you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn too. And please check out our announcement from last week about the gene therapy project. Big collaborative project that we're really excited about, and that's bringing a lot of hope to our disease community.
Absolutely, man. And before you go, Ron, I ask every guest to do this. If you could leave some words of encouragement for anyone aspiring to become a success of their own, or just need an uplifting moment, what would those words of encouragement be?
I think this is trite, but just you can do it. Believe in yourself. I think it's really easy to underestimate what we can accomplish. And I mean, when my daughter was diagnosed, I didn't believe that my family would be able to make it through, and we have. And when we were setting up the IAF Foundation, I had doubts about whether we'd be able to make an impact, and we have, and we'll make more of an impact. And I know that. And when I was trying to work out every day to make walk onto the basketball team, I had doubts about, am I going to be able to do this? And I could. And it's not because I'm special. It's because we can all do what we set our mind to, if we believe in ourselves.
Man, I appreciate you, Ron. I thank you for taking the time. I thank you for, educating me and the viewers, and hoping that, we can help spread the story, help share this story as much as we can, because this is something very important. And like you said, a lot of parents are not educated on this, and it's not their fault. It's just something that people don't think about. But, this is something that we want to make sure that we get out here, because that's what Tunnel Vision Sports is about. It's about positivity. So I thank you for coming on the show, and I thank you for taking the time out to share your story with you, your wife, your company. And, we wish you nothing but the best, man.
Thank you, Stephen. Look, appreciate you. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for the opportunity to share my family story and Yaya's story, and our disease community story, or leukodystrophy. And man, I just wish you happiness and health. With number 3 coming, I wish you and your family all the best, and health and happiness only for you guys. I'm excited for you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. This is Ron Garber. Ron, hold the line, but this is Ron Garber, Tunnel Vision Sports, Beyond the Game. We're out.